Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our Vectra Infinigate webinar today. I'm Lila Gates, the Vectra sales specialist at Infinigate, and we're joined today by Vectra's very own Tiffany Nip and Rich Vines. If you have any questions throughout today's session, please put them into the chat box. We'll do our best to answer them at the end, and if not, follow up with you afterwards. Rich, over to you.
Thanks, Lila. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking time out your day to join us. So we're here today to talk to you about how Vectra adds distinct and additional value to securing Microsoft environments and delivering real-time threat detection and response. Where this has come from, and I'm sure we've all seen in the news over the last couple of weeks, that there's been a rash of identity-based attacks, predominantly targeting retail. But now into manufacturing. So with Marks and Spencer's, Harrods, Co-op, and I think as of yesterday, Adidas, there's a growing, I think, acceptance and understanding that no matter what level of licensing you have from Microsoft, it only gets you so far. And how do we help protect your customers further by securing those Microsoft environments? And that's what we or I and Tiffany are here to deliver to you today. So I'll hand over to you, Tiffany.
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Happy to walk through how we are complementing Microsoft today. So a little bit about myself. I am a senior product marketing manager at Vectra AI. I've been in the company for 1.5 years now, particularly looking after our identity and cloud products. So a lot of the Entra ID, M365, Copilot, Azure cloud coverage is what I look after, which is also how we complement Microsoft as well. Previously, before I joined Vectra, I was actually at Microsoft myself, also a product marketing manager there, looking after Azure cloud. So very nice to meet all of you. And yeah, let's start. So a little bit of an agenda. So I did prepare a few slides to walk over what the problems we are seeing in Vectra these days, what are the gaps that we are trying to fill in the market, and then introduce you to our Vectra AI platform approach, which is coverage, clarity, control, and then obviously how do we complement existing Microsoft security to provide additional coverage for customers as well. And then I have a couple of case studies where I'll walk through real world attack scenarios and also how we help other customers to secure their Microsoft environment against identity attacks. And then ultimately we can walk through what is our ideal customer profile, and also how can you position Vectra to your customers, and what can you bring, what is the 1-2 message that you can take away from today's session so that you can introduce Vectra to your customers. So with that, we can first start with the problem that we are seeing in Vectra. So we have seen the network has evolved in every organization. As you all know, Vectra started as an NDR company, and traditionally network is defined as this little box here, which is data center, campus. We have your network identity. But then, as you all know, now it's not the good old days anymore, because with COVID, workforce has gone remote. So remote work has boomed, which SASE has boomed as well. And then a physical asset is now also become digital, where IoT and OT are here. And then with the migration of the cloud, we know that a lot of the data, like cloud data centers, store our important sensitive information and data, so as the Microsoft 365, which is the SaaS world as well. We know that with the recent launch of Copilot for M365, it is very easy for customers to now look for information organization, but we also see risks that attackers can abuse these tools. Once they gain access to an identity within an organization, they can much faster discover sensitive information using these tools. And then to our topic today, cloud identity, network identity, these has become the new parameter because of how all these data is stored in the cloud. Attackers are also moving to the cloud and targeting identities in particular to gain access to an organization's network and environment. So you see that now this is what we call the modern network these days. It is much more complex than what we are used to, and unfortunately, the gap that we are seeing now is that a lot of the security teams use different tools to monitor individual attack surface here, which is going to be a problem because there will be silos, and silos create blind spots, which we know that attackers are constantly exploiting. So one of the key things that Vectra knows is that there needs to be a stitching together of all the modern network attack surface. We need to help customers to paint the whole picture of how attackers gain access to an organizations and where they go next. So there's a huge gap we are seeing in the market here. So, and then let's talk a little bit more about identity as well, since we know that over the past few years, it has really been changing how organizations think about security because of how attackers are increasingly targeting identities to gain access to organizations. So in Vectra, we see that there are two types of categories of identities. We can start with the left here first. So we see that there are human identities and non-human identities. So what are human identities? So these are basically identities that employees have direct control over in the network in the cloud. And these are what we are more used to because your customer may say, yes, they are using MFA to protect these human identities. The bad news here is that only 64% of the users are using MFA at the moment, according to Okta, which means that there are still a lot of users that are not using MFA. And even though, let's say 100% of the users are using MFA, we know that attackers have many different ways to bypass MFA as well, which I will go deeper in the next few slides. So these are human identities. The headache here is that there are also non-human identities, which organizations are growing more aware of these identities and how they need to think about security for them. So what are they? So they are machine service accounts, instant credentials, service principals, or application credentials that are basically not assigned to a human. So these non-human identities, or what we call machine accounts, service accounts, these are high privilege normally, and they can access a lot of information in the organizations, which is why the attackers love them, because they constantly target these non-human identities, which are like highly likely that it's going to be a blind spot in the company, because MFA is not normally deployed and cannot be deployed in non-human identities. And in Azure Cloud, which is a new coverage area that Vectra now covers, we also see that attackers are targeting non-human identities in Azure, because sometimes security teams don't even know that these non-human identities exist. They don't have visibility on what they're doing, how many are there out there, because sometimes developers spin up a new resource, these non-human identities gets created automatically. It's very challenging to monitor these identities. Now, moving on to the right side here, we have human and non-human identities in both cloud and network. So we have cloud identities, which is basically identities in the cloud. In the public cloud providers, in SaaS application, is federated cloud identity. And for network identities, these are the ones that is relating to Active Directory, which is also Microsoft, and your local services. And as you see here, it is like not only because the modern network has become much more complex, but even identity itself has also become huge and it's growing, which means that this is an attack surface that attackers love targeting. And if we dive deeper into our research on modern attacks, we know that one thing for sure, attackers are moving faster than ever. According to CrowdStrike, the average time from infiltration to lateral movement only take 48 minutes now. And then the second thing, which is very important, is also that attackers don't attack each individual service in silo. Going back to my previous point about the gap of stitching together everything, it is because we are seeing this problem that 40% of the attacks are multi-domain, which means that attackers attack the whole modern network as one attack surface. Once they get an identity, they can then move to the network, or vice versa. They can pivot between network and cloud, evading a lot of detection, evading EDR and MFA, these other security defense here. And they also go undetected because it is very hard for organizations to see where they are and also what they're doing when they're in the organization's environment. And that's why we developed a product to solve this problem. And in Vectra, we say that modern attackers don't hack in anymore, they log in, because of all the different types of identity that I just mentioned and the challenge to basically have visibility of them and securing them. They are using different methods to gain access of these identities to just gain access to your organization with a legit, valid credential. They don't need to do different hacking, and so which is very challenging for organizations to really distinguish between whether this is a normal user doing something different today, or it is a malicious attacker who gained access to my IT admin and now it's doing all the malicious stuff. So, and then to also double click on this topic, we know that some of your customers may tell you they have MFA. I've already talked about not all users enable MFA. And now let's talk a little bit more about how attackers bypass MFA as well. So Rich mentioned there are Scatter Spider are recently active again in the UK in particular. We know that, for example, SIM swapping is a tactic that they use a lot to basically call a telecom provider pretending to be an employee and then just get a new SIM card to receive your two-factor authentication code to access your organization's environment. So these are typical tactics. Also, social engineering, voice phishing, pretending to be your IT help desk to reset MFA, etc. Many different ways that they can use to bypass MFA and access your organizations. Insider threat is another one that, what if it is not an attacker? It is already someone in your organization that are about to leave the company and decided to exfiltrate a bunch of data from your customer's company, right? So there are many different ways that attackers can bypass MFA. And the reason we mention it is because we always tell our customers that prevention is good and you should have it. But we know that because of all the modern attacker behaviors that we are seeing, we know that it is not really about whether they will be able to access your company, but it's almost a matter of when. So it is very important to also have the visibility and the defense once the attackers is in your environment, so that you can find them and stop them early in their attack progress before any damage can be done in your company. And that's why we created the Vectra AI platform, and we protect organizations' modern network basically from three things. Our approach is coverage, and control. So coverage is basically defense on all of these attack surface areas here. And yes, Microsoft do have some defense for some of these attack surfaces. They don't have network visibility, which is why Vectra NDR comes into play here. For cloud, we develop our detection based on what we know, the attacker tactics that are not covered by native tools. So it really gives the extended visibility for customers so that they can detect these sort of unknown attacks or particular lateral movements, zero-day threats that native tools might not be best to cover them. Besides coverage, we also have clarity, which is what we call AI agents to help customers also stitch together all of these views so that they can see the whole attack progression. And I'll talk a little bit more about it later. Ultimately, with coverage, clarity to know what to focus on, we also provide different control options for customers so that they can stop the attack with their native integrated managed response before the attacker can cause any damage. So let me walk through each of these pillars also here as well. So for the first pillar, coverage, so we have over 170 different AI detection models from all the attack surface that we've seen in the model network to protect against especially multi-domain attacks. So we have actually recently done a research with IDC. So they have interviewed 7 of our customers and to quantify the value of Vectra AI, the business value. And these customers tell us that after using Vectra AI, they are able to find 52% more attacks than before. One of the reasons is because we provide these coverage on every stage of the attacker progression. Not only the initial access and the exfiltration, but we cover every stage in between, so we can find these stealthy activities and behaviors and find them and alert security teams before they can progress further. So this is very important. And then moving on to clarity. So what do we do to help improve the signal accuracy for security teams? Because we know a lot of the security teams just have different alerts, and oftentimes too many alerts that they don't even know which one to focus on and which one they can start investigating. Some customers tell us that they are using Microsoft, but Microsoft gives them a lot of different alerts, and most of the time there's only 3 levels of urgency, which if it is not a very sophisticated or experienced security practitioner who will kind of know which one is not important, which one is really important that they immediately need to go investigate, it can be quite overwhelming for junior analysts and all that. So what Vectra has done is that we have created AI agents, 3 of them, to help give this clarity to security teams. So the first one we have is called AI triage. Basically, this is an AI agent that consider what is important in a customer's environment and then automatically resolve benign activities for them, which according to the same IDC report, we have been helping customers spend 51% less time on alert monitoring and triaging as a result. And the second AI agent that we have is AI stitching. So this is where we connect the identity activities across these different domains to help the security team identify the original compromised device or an account. So on the network side, there could be changing IPs, and it's not often easy and simple for companies to know which device is the compromised one. But for Vectra, we tell you it's John's laptop, so you can do something about it, and you can contact John and you can investigate this device. And in terms of the cloud environment, we know that a lot of the security teams use different tools to monitor cloud environment, and each of them might give you different IDs, which is often a 65-character alphanumerical string, which is very hard for an investigation analyst to go and stitch together all these different IDs to paint the picture, to trace the original compromised account. And with AWS, we know that it is difficult. And what Vectra do is that we help you in the back end stitch these all together, so that for AWS, we know that this is the original account that is being compromised instead of different IDs. And for Microsoft, an account in M365 or Entra ID and Azure, we are able to tell you it is the same person here that you can go do investigate about. So these, some customers tell us that we've been helping them save 30 minutes per investigation because of this capability alone. And according to IDC, we've been helping the security teams gain efficiency by 40% because of what we are doing in the back end. So the last AI agent here is called AI prioritization. And the way that we prioritize an entity, notice that we have an entity instead of each alert is that we group them together. So we know that, look at if you look at the figure here, we group different detections to one entity because we know that these are the attacker behaviors we've been seeing on this device here. We also factor in how fast is the attack and also the breadth of attack techniques used to the same entity. We also factor in the importance of this device. For example, how much data can it actually access, not just by assigned privilege, but we observe how important this entity by looking at how much stuff they can actually access. And then customer obviously can input like how important these accounts or assets are, but we factor in everything to generate an urgency score. And this is not just a 3, low, medium, high kind of urgency, but we score it from 0 to 100. So you know exactly how important it is and what entity do you need to go and investigate and stop the attack right now. And because of this, we are able to help customers detect 52% more threats because they're no longer buried in alert fatigue, but we are able to surface them so that they know what to do about it. And we also help them spend 60% less time to assess and prioritize alerts. And all of these efficiency gain, time save, ultimately customers can use it to reinvest in the other initiatives that are important to strengthen their security posture, or even use it to do more in-depth investigation or even threat hunting. Which brings me to our third pillar, which is control. So for control, we have AI-enabled investigation. So once the alert is prioritized in Vectra console, we don't only stop there, because you would then have many different questions about these attacker behaviors, right? What else did they contact? Where did it start? How long has it been going on, etc. And we provide you all of these answers with our investigation capability. We visualize it in an attack graph so that you can see the multi-domain attack and also the blast radius of it. And you can also find the original patient 0, where did the attack come from. Our instant investigation tell you the answer, which gives you all the data that you need to know. For junior analysts, it is really helpful to guide them on their investigation. And then for more advanced team, you can also deep dive these data with our advanced investigation as well. So the thing that is valuable that Vectra brings here is actually the data behind. So all of these investigation capabilities is powered by 25 different types of metadata. And these are very useful because oftentimes security teams either don't have these data, so they can't even go deep dive on threat hunting. Or these data are all in different places, which they are either expensive to store, or once you need it, you need to spend a lot of time to go to multiple platforms to look at all of them, and then spend time to stitch them all together. Vectra provides all of this data in one platform for you. So when you don't have a spare 1 minute to spend on stitching all of these together on manual tasks, we give you all the answers like right on your right in front of you, and we tell you what you need to investigate. So this has been highly powerful for customers. And in fact, you see a quote here, which is also from the IDC report, that customers really value the metadata that we collect during the detection, and they are able to use the same data to do more in-depth investigation, which makes them more efficient. And ultimately, once you finish your investigation, you would want to stop the attack. So you can use our automated response options, which just stop or lock down the account when it reaches a certain urgency score, so that you can spend the extra time to do deeper investigation while that is already locked down. There are different flexible options as well that we integrate with SIEM, SOAR, ITSM tools, so that we make sure customers can stop the attack before it can cause any further damage. And to give you guys a picture of how does our approach help real life customer. This is a attack progression, a multi-domain attack that you see the attacker's thoughts from Active Directory, which is the network identity, pivot to cloud identity, Entra ID, towards M365, and then Azure Cloud. There are different stages of the attack that these attackers are doing stealthy stuff in an organization environment, but Vectra is able to detect each stage of this attack. And not only do we factor in these coverage, right? We also, with our clarity and control, we are able to, from prioritizing the host, alerting analyst, to analyst completing the write-up in a report in 40 minutes. And if we recall, the average time for our attackers from infiltration to lateral movement is 48 minutes. And we are able to help the security team stay on top of them and stay ahead by accelerating their response time here as well. And this is the average time according to our MDR team as well and customer feedback. So yeah, so this is how we see the market and also how our unique approach with Vectra AI platform is able to help customers stop identity attacks. So now let's move on and talk about how do we complement customers' existing Microsoft security tools. So we know that, as I also talked about, like prevention is good and customers should invest in these, but also as we go through different examples here, we know that the attacker will bypass prevention, and that's why detection and response is very important, so that together we are able to help customers reduce their exposure and ultimately improving their security posture. And while we know that Microsoft Defender XDR has really good endpoint, email, identity protection coverage, they have good posture management, conditional access policy, etc. And with Sentinel, customers can get logs and they can create DIY workflow. You also get some threat intel and anomaly detections, which are good. Vectra AI adds on top AI detection across network, identity, and cloud, which I mentioned earlier. We also protect Copilot. We've also been seeing how attackers can use different ways to jailbreak Copilot to get them to basically show or reprint sensitive information in an organization if it is prompted a particular way. While this tool is designed as secure by design, but we know that there are chances that attackers can use it maliciously. And that's where Vectra, with our Copilot for M365 coverage, we are also able to help detect these sort of malicious behaviors. And then we provide the hybrid cloud coverage, which is important to protect customers' modern network, as I mentioned. And also we cover both human and machine identities. So all the 4 types of identities that I've just mentioned, we monitor all of them. And we continuously help the security team know that whether any of these are being abused by attackers. We correlate all of these activities. So the AI stitching that I just mentioned, so we don't only monitor each of them in silo because we know that attackers, 40% of them are multi-domains. So that's very important. And the prioritization, triage, and the clarity portion of it is really where we add a lot of value on as well, because we can tell customers what they need to do urgently. And also the investigation capabilities that I mentioned allow them to speed up their investigation and response time as well. And on top of all of this, if customers cannot do it on their own, we also provide our managed service to help the customers while integrating everything to their existing Microsoft tool stack. We integrate with Sentinel, the Microsoft Defender for endpoints. We ingest logs from Entra ID, M365, etc., from Azure. So it is fully SaaS delivery and it's agentless as well, which is what customers value with the speed of the deployment too. So this is how we test Microsoft's environment for our customers. And you may also have customers that have different license, E3, E5, but Vectra continuously help these customers to find identity attacks, which means that there is value, and customers know that, to use both Vectra and also the Microsoft license, because we do different things and we protect them in different ways. Especially with identity attacks, in last year we've been seeing a 6 times increase according to our MDR data, which means attackers are even using more of these tactics, and that's where the post-compromise detection and response are really important here. And this is also how we helped customers find and validate these compromises. So I'm also going to walk through a real-life attack scenario happening in a customer environment. We constantly help security teams do different red teams, or what we call OSA, offensive security assessment, so that they can constantly battle test their defense against real-world attack scenarios. So in this case, which is a ransomware attack by ScatterSpider, we see that ScatterSpider compromised a user, gained legitimate access to an account, and these are the attack steps that they took, from getting access to the account, dumping account, creating new groups and roles, creating backdoor account in Entra ID. This is how they normally hide and evade detections. And then moving on to M365, where they will then set up email rules, deleting stuff, disabling logging so that it's impossible to find out what they've done, and then ultimately exfiltrate data from Microsoft 365. You will see that the attack simulation starts at 3:38 p.m. and with a fully deployed E5 environment with the Sentinel rule as well, this customer's E5 environment only detected one technique with a low priority in the middle of the attack kill chain. But then, because this customer also has Vectra, we are able to detect every stage of the attack, and also not only give you the detection, but as you see, we prioritize this attack with the 100% urgency score in the 3rd stage of the attack by 4:08, which is 30 minutes from the beginning of the attack. And then ultimately prioritizing all of these attacker techniques based on one entity, and alerting customers with actionable insights on investigation and how they can stop these type of attack. And we don't only monitor ScatterSpider, we also cover attacker techniques associated with all of these groups and also unknown attacks. Our security research team constantly update our existing detections as well, based on what they've been seeing in the wild, and also developing new detections in each of these network identity cloud areas, so that we give the best defense for our customers. And to also give you a little bit more of the proof point, we have recently done a case study with a Fortune 500 financial services company. This company has been with Vectra for 8 years already. They are an E5 customers using Microsoft, like a complete Microsoft end-to-end shop. They have also recently expanded their footprint to Azure Cloud, and also using Copilot for M365, which is why they need additional visibility on identity-based attacks, especially towards their Microsoft tools. So they've deployed Vectra AI platform, and actually within 6 months that we have helped them stop 2 identity-based attacks, which is a man-in-the-middle scenario and also a business email compromise scenario. And even after that, we continuously help them prioritize attacks and also help them find these multi-domain attacks. They also leverage our MDR service, so really to have the 24 coverage, as this is a really small security teams. We also help them unify threat signals across different Microsoft environment in real time and correlate all these detection, which is highly valuable for the CISO, because he basically told me previously, if you looked at different attack surface, then the alerts from each of these servers might not seem a big deal if you look at them separately. But if you paint them together, if you stitch them together like how Vectra did, then you will be able to see that this is actually an urgent threat that they need to go do something about. This company also regularly run different attack simulation, and in one of the attack simulation against, they also have Microsoft tooling running in parallel with Vectra. We detected all of the 9 attacker techniques in that attack simulation, but unfortunately E5 didn't detect any of them. So which means that post-compromise detection, you really need some additional layer of security on top of Microsoft security tools. Ultimately, it really helps him save a lot of time. He gets the out-of-the-box coverage. He doesn't need to spend time to tune each of the detection rules separately, which really frees up a lot of his time to improve the response time and also do other security initiative, which is important to the company. And I have a quote here from this company. They basically say Microsoft is a critical piece of infrastructure for them, but they need to go beyond the basics when it comes to security. And Vectra really gives them the integrated signal that they need to defend against their Microsoft environment. So with all of these contents, so you may ask, how should you best position Vectra to Microsoft customers? So let's start by talking about who are our ideal customer profile. So we are particularly targeting what we call modern hybrid enterprise. What this looks like is that it's enterprise with 2,500 to 25K employees. Normally, their security team is full of generalists, maybe 5 of them, or sometimes these companies may not even have a dedicated SOC specialist as well. Their environment is what we call the modern network environment, which is hybrid. They have a mix of on-premise and cloud environments, or even company with a bias of like vastly migrating to the cloud moving forward. The multi-cloud, hybrid cloud aspect is what we really help companies about. For the CISO normally comes from a technology background with a bias towards operational framework, assessments, etc. And the buying requirement here is rooted on value outcomes, improving efficiency and effectiveness. Because of all the things that Vectra helped them do, we want to find buyers that want these outcomes so that we can really help them.
Now,
and then,
whilst, oh, sorry, Tim, I'll just jump in very, very quick.
Sorry, I couldn't see you.
That's
yeah,
all right. I'll just light it in the background. So for our partners, whilst this is Vectra's ideal customer profile,
yeah,
based on speed, velocity, ease of doing business, ease of understanding, the platform actually we can go down as low as 250 employees as well. So if you've got customers 250 employees and above that recognize the distinct risk in identity-based attacks, need to secure more, need to make sure that their Copilot is secured, we can go down to that level. To be perfectly honest, the smallest customer I currently have in UK and Ireland is actually 8 people, right? So it seems a little bit extreme, but in the type of attacks that you've heard Tiffany talking about earlier on, we touched on SIM swap fraud. So that customer is actually the largest provider of SIM swap fraud security out to the FSI market. So felt it was important to have something like that. So yeah, so sorry for jumping in. Just thought I'd clarify that.
Really good point to highlight that. Yeah, and then one of the ways we wanted to also help you how to position Vectra to Microsoft customers is that we know that customers may have E3 license or E5 license, and the way we would encourage you to talk to your customers is that while E3 provides access to MFA and conditional access policies, but as I just mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation, attackers have different ways to bypass them. So, and also E3 does not provide network, Active Directory, M365, Copilot for M365, Entra ID, Azure, and AWS coverage, which is basically what I talked about, the modern network coverage. So here is where Vectra can help here. And sometimes customers may be thinking whether they should migrate to E5, but we will say a E3 license with Vectra and an EDR of customer's choice, we provide better coverage than E5. Because Vectra sees and stop the attack before they become breach across the whole modern network. And clarity and control is very important as well. We provide out-of-the-box coverage as well, minimum tuning, and we help customers with faster investigation and response as well. So when it comes to E5 customers, it's a very similar talk tracks, but for E5, it provides very strong compliance and baseline threat detection. But in terms of a post-login modern network hybrid attack scenario, which like similar to what I showed you earlier in the real life attack simulation here, E5 does not provide a good enough coverage there. It also doesn't cover network. It doesn't cover Azure because Defender for Cloud needs to be purchased separately, and it doesn't cover AWS. So Vectra covers all of these modern network. And we also have different customer testimony and also different attack simulation results that shows that we cover attack scenarios that E5 are not focused on. And we continuously help customers with E5 license to stop breaches in a modern network. And the customers see value in having both solutions in their security stack as a layered defense as well. So these will be how I would position Vectra to your customers, I would suggest. Yeah. And last but not least,
sorry, Tiffany, can I make another quick point?
Yeah.
So what's also very important in the E3 scenario, if moving to E5 is just really about security for them, E3 plus Vectra plus their choice of EDR is actually works out about 20% cheaper for the customer over moving to E5, but critically, it's more secure. So Vectra finds 18 times more threats than E3, but as you can see here as well, we still find a number of attacks more than E5. I think it's about 3.6, which doesn't sound a lot, but it's actually the top 10 tactics and 23 techniques that attackers are using today to compromise Microsoft as well. So wherever they fit in the licensing stack, we can add distinct value, and if they're on E3, we can add that distinct value and and save them about 20% of the cost.
Yep. And the stats that Rich just mentioned is also based on one attack scenario, and there are many other different types of scenario as well. So we constantly help security teams, we constantly advance our security detections so that it fits what we are observing. A security research team will research the latest attack techniques and tactics to make sure that we have coverage for that for customers as well. Yeah. And it's also important to note that it's not only about the number of coverage, it's also about first whether they actually fire in a real attack scenario, because we know that attackers have different ways to evade certain detections within native tools as well. And also the clarity portion is also very important, which is a huge value add to these customers, because we really help them streamline the investigation, telling them what to look after, and also just prioritizing the entity so that they know they need to do something about it. The stitching triage is also highly valuable for E3 and E5 customers. Cool. Just to move on, I have, I think, 2 slides left, but I really want to highlight this IDC report that I briefly mentioned. I know that it will be available for all of you as well, because this is a very impactful research paper that demonstrate the ROI of Vectra. If you have customers that wanted to know how do they make a business case for Vectra, then these are all the statistics that can help you make the case and bring forward Vectra to your customers, because we are not only helping them save time, but we are actually helping them find 52% more threats with a 3 ROI with 6 months to pay back period. So yeah, so this is how we can justify the investment. And then this is the fresh the often. We just got the finalized report yesterday, actually, but GigaOM is a third-party analyst firm made up of security practitioners, actually, that they're full-time practitioners that donate their time and expertise to evaluate different vendors' technology. And this year, in the ITDR category, which is Identity Threat Detection and Response, Vectra AI, among the 16 other vendors evaluated, we are one of the 3 outperformers and also leader in this report. And the key reasons that the GigaOM analysts think the Vectra AI platform lead is because of our innovative AI, our enhanced AI security operations, the AI agents that I talked about in this presentation, how we prioritize risk for customers, our automated incident response options so that help customers to stop the attacks, our comprehensive visibility on the modern network, on both human and non-human identities in the network and cloud, and also our seamless integration and ease of management with our tool, because of being a fully agentless solution, really helps organizations of different size to fit into their security stack. So just wanted to highlight that as well as a latest validation that our company has gotten from analyst firm. So yeah, with that, I would summarize the key takeaway on today's session is that modern network has evolved, and modern attackers can log in to the organizations bypassing MFA, conditional access policy, and move across different Microsoft attack surface seamlessly across network, identity, and cloud. And that's why Vectra AI is here to extend the visibility across Microsoft security to stop attacks from becoming breach, so that we can truly bring value to your customers and help them to strengthen their overall security posture, both pre-compromise and post-compromise. Yeah, with that, that's the end. And Rich, I'll hand over to you.
Fantastic, thank you, Tiffany. So I think we're a couple of minutes over, so we won't keep you too much longer. We'll just open up the line for any questions. Lila?
Perfect, thank you everyone for joining this morning. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions which Rich and Tiffany can do quickly to answer, and then we can always follow up after this and share the IDC report as well as the latest Microsoft ebook, which you may or may not have received already. So with purchasing Vectra, do they need NDR plus the Microsoft modules, or can you start at different points? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So the short answer is no. So if we rolled back 18 months, Vectra customers followed a very kind of rigid or a very particular type of purchasing path. They would start with NDR, then they would move on to protect their SaaS and their identity, and then they would move on to cloud. What we've seen over sort of the last 12 months that's accelerated in the last 6 months is companies looking at our overall platform, really engaging with our message and how we can protect them, but actually selecting the area that they need, that's the highest priority for them to secure. So whether that's M365 and Entra ID first, or actually whether that's cloud first. And we've seen, probably since October, November time, an acceleration of customers that actually start off in the cloud, right? So, either AWS or Azure first, and then moving back the other way. So no, they can start wherever they like.
Perfect, thank you, Rich. And then just in the interest of time, as we are approaching lunch, one more question. So how can, sorry, that just come through. How can we prove the value to the customer? Can Vectra run their own red team, or can we?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the scenario that Tiffany showed, where we modeled all 11 stages of the scattered spider attack, that was actually a real world question that we were asked by the company that we did the case study for, the finance organization. And the premise was essentially, we've been in POV for quite a while. CISO came to us and said, look, I really get what Vectra does. I think it's essential for our business. The problem that I've got is that not that long ago, the board signed off 7 figures for me to go to E5, Sentinel, Defender XDR. I need a very effective way to be able to communicate back to the board why we need to buy Vectra. So we have an open source red team tool that either we can run or partners can run on our behalf that models an identity-based attack that will demonstrate that even if you've got everything from Microsoft, it's fully deployed, it's tuned perfectly, it's still only going to pick up one low-level alert, maybe surface it twice, but it's going to get lost in the noise. But Vectra sees and prioritizes at every stage. We can run that as an exercise for your customers or for your prospects to actually demonstrate the value back that we're providing and prove that the scenario work. And we've seen a trend now with organizations not just wanting to do a POV, but wanting to do a POV with a red team to demonstrate that value. So yeah, short answer is absolutely yes, we can. We can call it, instead of a POV, we could call it a Microsoft security assessment, if that would make it easier for them. And if we're doing it just on M365 and Entra ID or AAD, we can deploy in as little as 15 minutes. So it's a real quick proof of value.
Perfect. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Tiffany. If anyone would like to follow up afterwards, please reach out. But we'll leave it there and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.